The very first update to the Sherman Stock Exchange starts in the Motor City, where Jalen Duren has taken a major step forward in his development this season for the current #1 seed in the Eastern Conference right now in the Detroit Pistons. Watching his two-man synergy with Cade has been like chocolate for the eyes, and it's powered the Pistons to an 11-2 start and the second best record in the entire league. We all know Duren is as chiseled as a Greek god, but his skill set has undergone a full-blown Pokemon evolution compared to last year. He's bumped up his scoring nearly 8 points per game while still converting at a 65% rate. That uptick is primarily coming from his over 6.5 free throw attempts per game, more than doubling his previous career high of just over 3 per contest. Despite the assist totals ticking down from last season, the eye test displays an increase in the quality and diversity of his decision-making in the short roll. In fact, he's currently leading the league in points per possession on pick-and-roll actions as the screen setter at a staggering 1.46 points per possession. Duren is earning his seat at the table amongst the top young bigs in the entire league. He's taken huge strides on the defensive side as well, maturing as a rim protector evidenced by a career high in blocks and rebounds. He's helping to anchor what is currently the league's third-ranked defense, where the team is 3.5 points per 100 better on that end with him on the floor. His value in the Sherman Stock Exchange sat somewhere in the mid to high 60s as he entered his fourth year in the NBA, but now he's creeping up into the 80s as he begins to make a legitimate case for an all-star bid in a depleted is it still 12 players from the East and West? Adam Silver continues to just ruin the All-Star game, this time with some sort of weird round-robin USA versus the world thing. But either way, Duren is looking like he might earn himself a trip to the Intuit Dome in February. Oh, and while we're here in Motown, a quick shout out to Dennis Jenkins for his emergence in the past 4 games as well, going from basically a complete unknown to potentially a legit rotation guard at the NBA level. Moving on to the next riser on the list, we're headed south, where the Hawks look like they might have a new franchise player on their hands. Jalen Johnson not only had the game of his life last Thursday against the Jazz, but he's starting to look like a full-time star with Trey out of the lineup. It can be easy to forget that Johnson is a former 5-star recruit that many anticipated as being the next great one-and-done to come through Duke University. While he did still end up being a freshman first-round pick, injuries and perhaps the presence of a certain someone have held him back from fully breaking out into what scouts hoped he could be coming into the league. But this could finally be the year that he breaks out as the future of the Hawks franchise. With Trey still out for the next few weeks, he'll have the runway to lead this group and take over as the leader of the team. Jalen Johnson has always been near the top of the league when it comes to touches per game, but his efficiency with those opportunities has been what's most impressive so far in the early going this season. He's not wasting time in the mid-range, taking the type of empty calorie shots that you might expect from a young guy taking on a higher volume of the offense, but instead he's getting to the rim relentlessly, finishing over 80% of his 6.5 attempts at the rim per game. That's run and dunk type numbers for a guy who's also hitting 40% of his above the break threes. And while he won't be mistaken for an all defensive level guy, he's a big time playmaker and plays a large role on what's currently the 6th ranked defense in the NBA. Johnson looked great in the 36 games he played last year before injuries cut his season short in January. But him coming back even stronger has investors bullish on his upside as we approach 2026 and the second half of the NBA season. He entered the year trading around a 74, now taking a full 10-point jump to the 84 mark as he'll likely take home Eastern Conference Player of the Week, with averages of 24, 12, and 9, to go along with 60-57 splits and a perfect 4-0 record after mounting a 20-point comeback to snap the Suns' win streak on Sunday night. And our final riser on the second installment of the Sherman Stock Exchange has to go to the best backup for the best player in the world. What Jonas Valanciunas has done in relief of Jokic this season is by far the most support Big Honey has ever had off the bench. Above all else, it's the biggest reason I think Jokic looks even better this season. He's playing nearly 3 minutes per game less than he did last year, and when he does sit, he doesn't have to panic about a double-digit lead just evaporating within seconds like it has in years past. That's primarily thanks to JV, who has been feasting on second units all season long. This is the first time in JV's entire career that he's not the primary starter, and it's allowed him to continue to be effective even as he approaches his mid-30s. At just 12.5 minutes per game, he's still immensely valuable to what looks like clearly the second best team in the league. His presence could be the difference that allows Jokic to power this Denver team to another title run. I also wouldn't be surprised if we see the Nuggets start to experiment with a double bigs lineup down the line, especially in a potential matchup against the Houston Rockets, who have been obliterating teams with their size all year. Valanciunas' stock did take a small dip in the past year or so after signing in Washington and then being banished to Sacramento, but he has started to regain his value in the market as he finds himself in his first winning situation in a few years. His stock is back up into the 70s again after falling down to 60 prior to his arrival in Denver. And before we depart from the Mile High City and start to talk about the biggest fallers, I want to give a quick shout out to Peyton Watson. The numbers don't reflect it, and so the market hasn't moved on him quite yet. But after a very strong showing in their latest win over the Timberwolves, just watch out for him to start building up his stock in the coming weeks, as David Adelman starts to experiment with filling the gap left by the absence of Christian Brown. And speaking of our biggest fallers, the disappointing start to Cam Johnson's career in Denver opens up opportunity for Watson as well. But as far as Cam Johnson is concerned, the decision to bring him in favor of Michael Porter Jr. still makes sense, especially given all the flexibility it allowed for this team to bring in guys like the aforementioned JV, as well as guys like Bruce Brown and Tim Hardaway Jr. But Cam Johnson has been particularly bad, and he's now dealing with an arm injury that kept him out of their last contest. His shot has simply fallen off of a cliff since arriving with the Nuggets. But what's most concerning is just how passive he looks in this new offense. By the end of his time in Brooklyn, he looked like he was making huge developments as someone that can aggressively take over the offense in stretches as a high-level shooter. He was taking over 13 shots and 7 threes a night last season with the Nets, which has now been cut in half this year despite still operating as a full-time starter. Now, I find it hard to believe that Cam Johnson is going to be the one player in NBA history that Jokic doesn't make better by playing alongside him, but right now, his only value is the reputation that he carries as a shooter, as just his presence on the floor still helps space out the Nuggets offense just enough to remain a viable option in the rotation. But if he doesn't start hitting shots soon, he could see his role diminish even further with all the options this team now has on the depth chart at the wing forward position. His 19 point per game season on elite efficiency last year had Johnson trading in the mid-70s, but 11 games in and he's already fallen back into the 60s with career worst numbers across the board. The penultimate feature of today's episode is none other than Ja Morant. The current situation in Memphis is one of the bleakest in the entire association, and most of the blame has to be shifted towards the face of the franchise. Well, it certainly isn't his fault that the front office traded his backcourt running mate for future draft capital, or that their head coach runs an offense that isn't conducive with his play style, or that he's only playing 29 minutes a game because of the odd, unnecessary EuroLeague-style rotations that the Grizzlies use, or that his star big man still can't rebound and still can't stop fouling, but Ja Morant's play on the court has been abysmal, and just downright unwatchable at times. If you had never watched Morant play basketball before this season, and all you ever knew about him was the 12 games he's played so far, you'd probably walk away saying he was the worst player in the entire NBA. He's shooting under 36% from the field, averaging a career high in turnovers at just shy of 4 a game, and he's given about as much effort on the defensive end as I do rolling out of bed. While he still stood as an 85 coming into the season, he can't be valued as a star right now with the current state of affairs. He has basically no trade market, and it's been quite some time now since we've seen him really impact winning. And to wrap up this edition of the Sherman Stock Exchange, we head over to Disney World, where there are no dreams coming true for veteran backup point guard Tyus Jones. He's off to by far the worst start to a season in his entire career, having gone scoreless in 7 straight games for Orlando, the 5th longest streak in NBA history. After being one of the most reliable backups in the entire league for years, he's inexplicably fallen off a cliff this season, bordering on being unplayable for a Magic team that could really use his skill set to help boost their 20th ranked offense. The team is 21 points per 100 possessions worse with Jones on the floor offensively though. And it's not just that he looks completely lost in Jamal Mosley's system, but beyond that, he's just absolutely struggling to put the ball in the basket. An effective field goal percentage of 28 is just beyond unfathomable for such a career-efficient guard like Tyus Jones. Even though he wasn't nearly as impactful as expected in his lone season in Phoenix last year, he still stood at a 65 coming into this season. But now, he's by far the biggest faller in the league right now, dropping down into the next tier at a 49. But with that, it'll wrap up the second edition of the Sherman Stock Exchange. Hope you guys all enjoyed. Make sure to leave a like and to subscribe to the channel, and we'll be back with another update after Thanksgiving. Thanks for watching.